Science is an organized way of gathering and analyzing information about the natural world. The goal is to provide natural explanations for events happening in the natural world and to use those explanations to make useful predictions. The word science derives from the Latin word Cynthia, which means knowledge. Science represents knowledge that has been gathered over time. Scientific knowledge helps us cure diseases, place satellites in orbit, and send instantaneous electronic communications. Yet despite all we know, much of nature remains a mystery. Scientific investigations begin with observations, which are the act of noticing and describing events or processes in a careful, orderly way. Observations lead to questions that no one has ever asked before, and after those questions, scientists use further observations to make inferences, which are logical interpretation based on what scientists already know. With these inferences, we can create a hypothesis, which is a scientific explanation for a set of observations that can be tested in ways that support or reject that inference. Every hypothesis should be tested by an experiment in which only one variable is changed. This type of experiment is called a controlled experiment. The variable that is deliberately changed is called the independent variable, and the variable that is observed and that changes in response to the independent variable is the dependent variable. In an experiment, the groups are divided in control and experimental. The control group is exposed to the same conditions as the experimental group except for the independent variable. For making those experimental observations, scientists gather information called data. There are two main types of data: the quantitative data, which are numbers obtained by counting or measuring, or also qualitative data, which are descriptive and involve characteristics that cannot usually be counted. Researchers must be careful to avoid errors in data collection and analysis. Good scientists share scientific attitudes or habits of mind that lead them to exploration and discovery. Such attitudes are curiosity, which lead to new questions; skepticism, which means that they question existing ideas and hypotheses; open-mindedness, which means they are willing to accept different ideas that may not agree with their hypotheses; last but not least, creativity, which they needed to describe experiments that yield accurate data. Scientists share their findings with the scientific community by publishing articles that have undergone peer review. In peer review, scientific papers are reviewed by anonymous, independent experts. Publishing peer-reviewed articles in scientific journals allows researchers to share ideas and to test and evaluate each other's work. Evidence from many scientific studies may support several related hypotheses in a way that inspires researchers to propose a scientific theory that ties those hypotheses together. In science, theory applies to a well-tested explanation that unifies a broad range of observations and hypotheses. When scientists explain why something happens, their explanation involves only natural phenomena. Pure science does not include ethical or moral viewpoints. The way that science is applied in society can be affected by bias. A bias is a particular preference or point of view that is personal rather than scientific. The study of biology revolves around several interlocking big ideas, such as the one that all organisms store the complex information they need to live, grow, and reproduce in a genetic code written in a molecule called DNA. Another one of these is that all organisms reproduce, which means that they produce new similar organisms. In sexual reproduction, cells from two parents unite to form the first cell of a new organism. Other organisms reproduce through asexual reproduction, in which a single organism produces offspring identical to itself. Another idea is that all organisms need to keep their internal environment relatively stable, even when external conditions change dramatically. This condition is called homeostasis. Combination of chemical reactions through which an organism builds up or breaks down materials is called metabolism. All forms of life on Earth are connected into a biosphere. Within the biosphere, organisms are linked to one another and to the land, water, and air around them. Science is not a list of facts, but a way of knowing. To make certain that scientific knowledge is used for the benefit of society, all of us must understand the nature of science, its strengths, limitations, and its interactions with our culture.